I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Caged is over. Pile out, you tramps. It's the end of the line. All right. We're watching Caged, which is another in the litany of films that celebrate Andy's fetishization of putting women in prison.
Is that my thing?
Yeah, I think it's your thing.
I think it's funny that last week we talked about, no, not last week, but for our member bonus episode, we talked about The Gunslinger, or no,
Yes.
The Gunfighter, which came out this same year, nominated for an Oscar. And that's the one Roger Corman worked on, not this one.
No, this one's too serious. This one takes itself more seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is part of our Platinum Performances, the 1950 Best Actress. I can't talk this morning. The 1950 Best Actress Oscar race. And this is the third in this most recent series, but we've already talked about All About Eve. So we're getting close to the end of this. We will have very soon talked about all of the actresses nominated this year, Pete. We're getting close.
I can almost feel it. Almost feel the complete resolution of this long podcast arc.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
And then after this, we get to go to 1925. It'll be a journey.
I know. Do you think we'll ever hear a movie that I picked for this season?
We did. We did The Aura.
The one. We got one.
Yeah, we did one movie for you. I needed to throw something in there to placate you a little bit.
This is the weirdest season where we just split down the pretty much January.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, once
much.
we hit kind of like the end of the year, at the beginning of next year, then it's yours.
It's just all the way down.
I think I have one in there for me.
Yeah. Well, what a treat. Okay, Caged. So John Cromwell, director, as you said, 1950. It's a tight 96 minutes. Delightful watch there. It is, I don't know. It's definitely a prison drama. It's got some good people in it. People taking their roles seriously. It doesn't have the exploitation that one has come to expect if you listen to this podcast and watch the movies along with us. Everybody's
Roger
wearing
Corman series for sure. Yeah,
normal. What do I know from 1950s prison garb? But they're wearing much more modest outfits. And we get some good, not quite sociopathic, but still mean-spirited, warden-y kind of material.
Yeah, we missed out on the torture equipment in the basement, which we
sure did.
That was a real miss.
That was a huge miss. Yeah, I don't know if it does it even count in the genre of women in prison movies if there isn't the torture.
So you're right. You know, it's interesting because this is the first in line. There, I've been watching movies kind of that were nominated for Best Picture, and so I've worked my way backward to the 1950s, and now I'm working my way forward from the 1927-28 Oscars. And I recently just did 1929-30, and in that lineup was a movie called The Big House, which is the first prison picture. And it's like we follow somebody who gets put in prison, and it's like the movie is about life in prison. And that's kind of where it started. And the people did all this research to figure out what life in prison was like, and they were showing the real thing. And that kind of created this whole prison, life in prison subgenre, whether it's drama or crime or action or thriller or whatever the case may be. This is the first dip into showing life in women's prisons. And so we're really kind of getting a sense of that side of the story now. And to that end, it is kind of a first. And when we look at women in prison pictures, I suppose that you need to start with a serious one that's getting nominated for Oscars before it turns into something that gets exploited. Like in order to have exploitation, there needs to be something there first to exploit it, right?
Yes. And in some respects, I think I use this term liberally, there is a purity to Caged that allows it to be exploited later. A purity in production, in performance, in like it's taking itself as seriously as a film could.
Yeah, which I mean, that makes sense for something that ends up getting, made by a studio, playing in theaters across the country, Oscar nominations, all sorts of critical acclaim, et cetera, et cetera. So it absolutely makes sense that this is what we're getting here. And then you can see why it's something that's kind of fun to exploit. Bette Davis was asked to be in this film, and she's just like, it's a dyke picture. Why would I want to be in that?
Jesus, Davis.
I know. Bette Davis was a little tough at the time.
Wow.
And that was kind of one of the views of this film. And you can see it in the film for sure. There is that element that we have between two of our characters. That is something that you can see filmmakers and storytellers and audiences saying, let's tap into that more and exploit that, because that is makes for a seedier type of story. I mean, seedier in quotes type of story that audiences will flock to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, do you think? I don't want to spoil the awards section, but Eleanor Parker. What do we think of Eleanor Parker's performance? Did you buy the sort of fatalistic arc of hers, going from the naive innocence to what she turned into?
I really did. I thought she was great. I thought the story captured that journey well. I like Eleanor Parker. I haven't seen her in a whole lot, but the few things I've seen her in, I enjoy her generally, and I think that she came across at the beginning of the film like what you would expect in in kind of a 50s movie with kind of like the Good Little Housewife. Like she seemed like a good girl that had never had any exposure to crime of any sort. And it was only because she married this guy who decided to rob. They were struggling for money. He couldn't get any work, and he decided to rob a convenience store and got shot in the process. And she ran to him to hold him. And so because of that, they booked her as an accessory to the robbery, to the crime. Mm-hmm. And that was her first exposure to anything like this. And so watching her journey from completely panicked and scared about being put in prison. And I will say, I mean, it's tough in prison, but they're much nicer in this version of prison than even Shawshank Redemption, where, they're like, let's see who's the squealer tonight, right? Like they're very purposefully trying to like pick on people to make them break. But she moves into this, she toughens up. She has to, as she learns how the world treats prisoners, how prisoners are treated by their own wardens or their matrons, right? And over the course of the story, there is that arc that I bought into, where she was staying firm against, there was this offer put forth by Kitty Stark, who had a connection to the outside that could get them a, quote, real job when they got paroled. That actually wasn't, but it was very difficult for women to find a job, like for the parole officers, the parole board, to actually find work for these women. And so I can't remember which character it was, but one of them was stuck in prison. She'd been paroled, but there was no work for her outside. And until they found a job for her, she had to stay in prison. And that was like a terrible, strange, unfortunate situation. Companies hadn't learned to exploit prisoners yet, clearly, in 1950, as they do now. But Kitty had a way where you could get this quote job that really was just a front. And then what you would do is end up working for a criminal organization as a pickpocket or something else. And and Marie, Eleanor Parker's character, had been offered this by Kitty, and she stayed firm, not wanting to do it up until that very end when she finally hit a point where she had just had enough and needed to get out. And that was when the new person came in. Was that Elvira? And she just gave in, and she said, "Get me out of here." And so she's going to join the shoplifting gang. And so I bought it. And her conversations that she had with Agnes Moorhead's character, like, it does come across a little bit safe, I guess, but it is 1950. And so in context of knowing that this film is 75 years old, I bought into all of it.
I did too. It's an interesting film. It's sort of, I wanted this to be stylistically maybe harder core, maybe more noir. I mean, it already has kind of the language of kind of that fatalism, the sort of borrowed filmic language of film noir, and yet it's really an antecedent of social reform films, right? Like He the Night and Aaron Brockovich, and it's definitely much more about what human systems do to humans in unchecked environments, and so it's designed, to my mind, to make you stop and think about what we do to each other, right? Kind of a socially conscious melodrama, and it turns people into a sort of diorama for our own prison hypocrisy. I in the spirit of what I couldn't help but think throughout the entirety of my 96 minutes with this movie was, how does it seem like we're still telling this story? Why is it we're still telling this story in prison films? What have we not learned? And I think that's the point. That's the point of the movie. So on that front, like, it sort of transcends its individual performances, which is a lovely experience of a movie this tight and this not sensationalized, right? It's pretty straight across the bow. It doesn't give us a lot of hyper contextual violence or anything like that. It's pretty straight.
It is pretty straight, and I think for that, I think they did a pretty good job with it. I mean, we're getting kind of the social setup of how the prison system works within our country, and I think there's a bit of indictment with that, with Agnes Moorhead's character perpetually talking about how she is working to reform this place. She's the I don't know, is it the warden? I can't remember what her specific role is, but essentially she's the one who runs this place, right? And then and she's working hard to get better funding so that they're getting a better updated medical system. Like, the doctor's horrified when he comes into the place, and to help Marie, we didn't mention when she shows up in prison, she's pregnant, to help her give birth. And so, like, this place is falling apart, and Agnes Moorhead's character, the warden, is working to make that change. So we're seeing this system, and we're seeing people who want to improve it, but then we're also seeing the flip side of that with the matron who is kind of running this place. That is Evelyn Harper. That like, she's abusing the system. She uses it to curry favors from the women to so that she can make out with all sorts of extra stuff. She is abusive, and she also is tapped into higher ups within the system. So every time that the warden is trying to fire her, she can't, because Harper just makes a phone call to her connections, and and then they say you have to stay, you have to keep her. And so you can see this the way that this system is broken, and it's a very difficult one to fix. People don't want to fix it because, again, prisoners can kind of be used as slaves. You can get them to take care of other things and do stuff that you can't get other people to do for low wages and everything. And so it's a system that's hard to get out of, and we still see that. Like the prison system today is gotten even worse, if anything, and more abusive.
I think that's one of the most interesting things you said. I mean, we're talking about Agnes Moorhead's character, and I think what she reflects, this idea that you can be reform-minded, you can have all of the best intention in a gridlocked system of corruption. She is actually, for me, the sort of saddest character in this film because she wants so badly to see change for these women. She wants so badly for the place to be something more than it is, to be a place of rehabilitation. She talks about how, gosh, to the men to whom she reports these things and gets money, that she asked for 80,000, they gave her 8. Which there is no way to make institutional change, without the funding to do so. Everyone above and below her, and even in some cases the prisoners, stand against her need to move things forward in the prison and to make it a place of positive rehabilitation, because corruption has so calcified. And this isn't a movie with a ton of like overt violence. It's not a movie that's just full of horrible vileness. It is just insidious corruption around every corner. It is a great sort of presentation of hopelessness, even though it doesn't feel necessarily like prison violent.
Yeah, right. We certainly have violence in the prison, but it's not, that's not necessarily the focus. We see it, but
right.
We do see, I think that describing her character as the saddest one here, I think that's true because she believes in humanity. She sees Marie as a good person. She sees Marie as somebody who's made some mistakes, got herself into a bad situation, but not a bad person, and somebody who can actually get out and still make something of herself if this system that she's running and trying to change doesn't break her. And that's essentially kind of the crux of the story we're watching here, as we're seeing her trying to move Marie particularly, but the system forward in a way where Marie can get out and find that way forward again.
Yeah.
We see that it's heartbreaking in her first attempt at going to the to the parole board when she's up at her 10-month mark, where and this is after she's had a baby and had to give it up for her adoption because her mom refuses to take it, and her aunt and uncle, she doesn't ask them but doesn't want to burden them with it. And so she's already had a hard time. 10 months, she's kind of convinced that she's been doing well enough, she'll get out. I think and it's the superintendent Benton thinks that she might be able to get out, but the parole board doesn't see it, right? And that's how so often these situations are run. These people that you're trying to convince your case to, they're just not seeing it. And she panics and she freaks out and she essentially tries to run out of the prison, and only making things worse for herself. And that's kind of, you have these perpetual breaking points for her. That's one of them. Another one is when Harper brutally decides to get back at her and shaves her head. And that's a big thing for Marie to have to go through, where she has to suffer that humiliation of getting her head shaved and put into the solitary, and leading to, you can really see how that gets us to where we're going to be at the end. And you can see other people break. Like Kitty definitely gets broken through being stuck in solitary for a while, and she ends up, stabbing Harper to death, actually, which was, a pretty shocking scene. But I mean, we're seeing some tough stuff and how the system really can break a person. And like, that's the thing, though. It's like when a society already views everybody who's put here as bad and unreformable, it kind of creates this system where people care less about it. And it's hard to get people to understand that there is a way to reform and make these changes. And I think that John Cromwell, coming onto this story, I think he saw an opportunity to shine a little bit of a light on things,
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it feels so much like he's presenting us with an ensemble kind of repertory theater presentation, right? Like I really appreciate the way every character gets its sort of due, right? We have a lot of characters that are interplaying with one another in a way that I think works very, very well. The cruelty sort of emerges from the procedures of the prison and not major set pieces or gambits or heists. It's just like there is a low simmer of cruelty in this place, and it is inescapable. And he lets the performances sort of shine through that darkness. I think it's really it's a compelling and propulsive watch. It doesn't lag at all because I think he gives these actors some real opportunity to shine. What's her name? Who is the repeat offender? She comes in early. She's told, take her around the corner. You've been here before. Like she's
that's Emma Barber.
I love the way if there's ever a slow moment in the film, Emma Barber has a one-liner, right? Like she's constantly saying stuff, just one after another. Like if there's ever slowness, Emma Barber's there. Used very, very well. It's paced well. It is, we walk through the entire life cycle of a prisoner, of an inmate, through our protagonist, right? We go through intake, we go through the orientation, we go through the first sort of compromises that they're forced to make. Then we get into her kind of survival calculus, like trying to figure out what's it going to take for me to actually exist here, and eventually her breaking and becoming this thing that she never imagined herself becoming were it not for the circumstances. And I think that is all played out in, again, I'll say it again, a taut 96 minutes. It's a lot of life on this film.
Yeah, and it tells it tightly, it tells it cleanly. It gives us a sense that just how broken things are and how much the system has changed Marie, when at the end, when Benton's assistant or whoever says, what should I do with her file? And she's just like, keep it open, she'll be back. And that kind of tells us, okay, Marie is now a lifer. She's going to be one of these people, like the old woman who's been here 60 years and is, here for life now. It's like, that's going to be her. She's not going to be able to break out of this system. Her mom essentially kind of abandoned her it's kind of like, by not taking the baby, there is this sense that mom is essentially also abandoning her, right? Did you
my God, dude, that scene, honestly, more than the stabbing, more than anything else, was the most heartbreaking sequence in the film. When she asks her mother, please take this baby. It's just going to be a couple months and I'll be out. Right. And mom says no, that her husband would never have it, right? Yeah. He won't allow the baby in the house. In that circumstance, in that context, that mom would turn around and make it so much about her and is excruciating. It's excruciatingly painful to watch that.
Well, and it's tough. And also, I think this is another element of the film that we're getting here, is just how much men end up putting women into these situations, right? Like Marie never would have ever stepped into a place to rob it. Like the only reason she's in here is because she got out of the car to go to the aid of her husband who had been shot.
Right.
And because of that, she's now in prison, accused of being an accessory. Same situation here. Her mom is, married to this new man, her stepdad, and her stepdad is the one who says, I don't want a baby in the house. I don't want Marie to come out. Like she doesn't have a place to live. She can't live with her mom and dad. That's one of the things the parole board brings up when they're like, you don't have a place to stay. Where are you going to go? Because your stepfather won't have you. He says he refuses to have you live with them.
Yeah.
That's another of these elements that's putting her into this situation of like, every little piece is driving her into this situation. The parole board, it's all men.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing a systematic oppression of women here where they just can't get out of this. And it's prisoners too, but in this particular film, it's very much, I think, also speaking to the nature of women and men.
Oh, God, it's so gross.
Yeah.
So gross. Women and men in the 1950s, because there are still a lot of problems in depictions and relationships between women and men. They're just different problems, right? In films we get now. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the way that we get the portrayal of these of the struggles of these women by their psychological framing, by the response to the negative stimulus that they're getting, the relationships to the parole boards. Every one of the women who has a meeting with the parole board comes in zombified, right? They're just the way they are portrayed as shocked and empty to the point where one of them takes their own life, right? Like that's it is haunting. The way these men have such a diabolical and sinister, unintentionally sinister, culturally sinister hold over these women. I don't think any one of the men on the parole board is out to see these women suffer the way they are. I think they just don't care.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think that's a big part of it. And again, it's just they're stepping into a prison. They have already made assumptions about the people who are going to be before them, right?
Yeah, right.
Like this isn't a reformatory, it's a prison. And I think that's the viewpoint they're stepping in here. And they're like, why do I want to unleash this person back on the world when clearly they're a problem, even if they're not, And so it makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Who else do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about Harper a little bit more. Hope Emerson plays her. And I'm curious in the scope of the story if she comes across a little too one note, or if you feel like, is it too stereotypical, or is it just, again, this is kind of creating the stereotypes?
Yeah, I guess I see it as the latter. We don't get a huge sort of slice. This is just a slice of her life, right? We don't get a huge sense of who she is outside of her experience in the prison. And she lives there, right? I mean, that's my sense of it. She goes out on a date at some point, but when we see her in her little office, there's a bed and she's on it eating bonbons and...
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure that out. I guess I didn't know, like, is she just a night shift person? And so she's kind of checking and making sure things are going, and then she kind of rests for a while, or does she actually live there? I wasn't exactly sure, because that was strange. I'm like, why would she live in the prison?
Yeah.
It's not like they're on some remote island where it's like you have to take a boat to get on and off it. Like it's in the heart of the city.
Yeah, right. So that is uncertain. I did not understand that as either, but I do find like she is, like if we look at it Doyleistically, right? She plays this role as the sort of negative stimulus to everybody else, and the movie needs her to just be bad so we can see how everything else, works around her. And I guess you could call that one note of necessity. It didn't feel overindulgent in that one note to me, right? It felt like she was the thing that others had to react to, and I got it. I also don't think she played it as like she's not a Cruella de Vil kind of character, right? She's not actually melodramatic in her portrayal of this thing. She's a naturalist performer, and I think the way she transitions from, hey, I'm eating bonbons and welcoming the new fish into the floor, and then turning so subtly from, no, you're not going to do laundry. You're going to be scrubbing the floors. And that's just the way it is. I thought was particularly, telling of that character's intention. She doesn't have to be broad in performance to actually demonstrate her sinister side.
I think that's what works so well for her. Like, she's a really interesting and kind of just a fun character to have. And I mean, like I said, she kind of became the stereotype. She wasn't a stereotype yet, but this essentially became the stereotype for what people would expect as what you would see in a women's prison movie. This tough, big matron who would just kind of lord over the people who were there. And I think she plays it really well. I enjoyed seeing what she brought to the table. She was fun. Mm-hmm. And she's one of those faces that I feel like I've seen her in just a few other films like Adam's Rib and stuff, but I think that she's a fun one to kind of see pop up in things. She seems like very much a that guy or that gal type of performer.
Yeah, for sure. She also has a voice that's kind of hard to forget, right? She sounds familiar to me as much as she looks familiar.
Yeah, and she died just a decade after this. So she was only 62 when she ended up dying from a liver ailment. So. Oof. Yeah,
liver. That's not a way you want to go.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Agnes Moorhead. I don't know if we've talked about Agnes Moorhead before. Has she been in anything that we've discussed? I mean, she's somebody who's been around for a while because of things like Citizen Kane, and she's part of Orson Welles' Mercury Players.
Yeah, I look at her and I think she is. She strikes me as, why do I have an image of her as a villain?
Well, I don't know, but I'm sure we both grew up watching her on Bewitched because she was the mother. She was her mom, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
But I saw her as sort of clueless in Bewitched, not evil.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm just thinking witchy, but I'm trying to think villain. I don't know where. I guess I can't. I'm not sure where you're seeing her as a villain. I don't know if I've seen her. I mean, I haven't seen a ton of her stuff, but I don't feel like I've seen her play a villain before. So much like,
50s, 60s era, 70s era TV in addition to Bewitched. I cannot place why I have this image of her as a villain. But honestly, the entire time I'm watching the movie, I'm imagining Hope and Hope Emerson and Agnes Moorhead switching places.
Interesting. Yeah. Is that just because you see her as villainous?
Yeah.
So, you know why? Okay, I have a sense as to what it is. Agnes Moorhead, I don't know. Tell me if you think I'm right.
Okay.
She looks like, I have to look this up.
What is happening?
Agnes
right
Moorhead
now?
Looks like, what is her name? She looks like Judith Anderson, who plays Mrs. Danvers in Rebecca. Like there's a similar look between her. Like, I don't know if Rebecca is a film that you're that familiar with, but she's kind of like the evil house lady. All right, she's kind of the takes care of Manderley, and she's always looking down on and judging Joan Fontaine.
Really interesting pull. Okay.
Like-
I can see that. It's less her face specifically, but more of her type of face that is cast in these. I mean, just look at her IMDb profile. It looks villainous. It looks like she is going to go shave a puppy, right?
Wow. Okay. That's so
And yet
funny.
here she was, very, very nice in this movie.
She's very nice here. Yeah.
All right.
You know, it's funny.
That's really
Eleanor
funny.
Parker, we already talked about her, but I just have to say, like, I don't think that I ever would have been able to pull this, but like The Sound of Music, she's the Baroness in Sound of Music 15 years after this. And that's probably where, like, I had seen her so many times in that without ever being able to place her. And I've only seen her in a few things, like Detective Story and a couple others. But it's like, that's the movie that I probably can picture her best from because I've just seen it so much.
That's really funny. I would not have pulled that without looking at her list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
John Cromwell is an interesting director. Have you seen, well, we talked about Anne and the King of Siam,
Yep.
right?
That's one we've got.
Yep. A strange one to have added to our list.
Yes.
But we have talked about that on the podcast. People are
And
like,
now
really?
we have 2 of Cromwell's 4 best known for from IMDb.
Right.
Out of 50 credits, we've got 2 of them.
Right. So funny.
Yeah.
Cromwell was before this film, during when HUAC was active, the House Un-American Activities Committee investigating and everything, he was a person of interest linked to supposed communist subversion going on in Hollywood. He described himself as a liberal Democrat and really wasn't that politically active until Roosevelt's third term for the White House. But with all of this, he started getting pressured and ended up on this list of names of a bunch of supposed communists. And he kept telling people, I'm not. He was working with RKO. And this was around the time that Howard Hughes ended up buying it. And he was very anti-communist. Cromwell got a script from RKO that they wanted him to make, and it was called I Married a Communist. And this is a quote that he said. He said, they just sent me a script and said, this will be your next assignment. I looked at the script and the name was I Married a Communist. And I thought this was kind of funny. I never read such a bad script in my life. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that it could never be made. But I decided to stick it out. He started working on it. It was assigned a screenwriter who he says, quote, was one of the worst anti-communist witch hunters in Hollywood. And I saw that this was pretty deliberate. So he started getting a sense that basically RKO had put him on this project because they were essentially trying to get rid of him. They wanted him out. And so he ended up getting so disappointed that he ended up leaving. There were delays in the project and everything. And it got to a point where production had actually threatened to trigger a triple salary provision in his contract. And so RKO was just like, fine, we want you out of here. They loaned him to Warner Brothers to make this movie. So that's how he ended up coming on to this project. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny how that ended up happening. But he was just like having a terrible time with RKO. And that film did end up getting made. It ended up being renamed to The Woman on Pier 13. Robert Stevenson ended up directing it. And then he would go on, Cromwell would go on getting blacklisted in the 50s. And he ended up, no one wanted to work with him for a time. So he ended up kind of out of the film industry for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, you look at so he made this movie in 1950. He has 2 more films after this that came out in 51, and then nothing else until 58, 59, and 60, and then he's gone.
Yeah. Because he, he passed away he worked through 79. He passed away. He died in 79. So yeah.
It's interesting that when you look at this movie through the era, right? It dodges a lot of the production code sort of issues, right? It sort of threads the needle, I guess, right? Depictions of institutional brutality and corruption and pregnancy and prostitution, but only by suggestion, I think we've got a lot of observation rather than explicit depiction of things that would have caused some sort of a response, and I think he still expertly crafts a film that tells a dark story.
I think it really does. I think he by keeping it tight, by keeping it clean, by just allowing it to the actors to just deliver the story, I think it makes for kind of a dark, brutal, clean film that just gets its message across and gets out,
Yeah.
And yes, you could call it a message movie, I suppose, in some way, but I think it's because the characters come across as honest and very realistic. It never feels overtly like that's the only reason that the film exists.
That's an interesting take on it, because I compare it to movies that actually do scream that this is why they exist, and yet I think you're right. I think this movie, maybe only in hindsight, to me, has that message. I wonder if I'm sitting in the theaters in 1950, if I'm having that feeling. I want to go write up a sign and start protesting the prison system, or if it just at the era is a movie that makes me feel and then forget.
Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting.
It's also interesting as depiction of lesbian characters. We do have a couple in here of that relationship between Kitty Stark, which is such a Marvel name.
Totally.
And Elvira Powell, who ends up showing up in prison, and clearly they had a relationship before, and now they're very antagonistic toward each other, to the point where that's the whole thing that really brings Kitty Stark down, when she finds out that Elvira's coming into the prison, and she ends up having a terrible time, ends up in solitary, and then ends up murdering Harper. And Elvira ends up kind of taking over her position as kind of the chief inmate of the running the place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and things go dark when she gets there, and she definitely has a posse.
Yeah, but I don't think, unlike the exploitation films that would come, I don't feel like it ever was denigrating the lesbian characters. I don't know. How did you read that?
I don't think I thought of it that way, for sure. As not a lesbian myself, I don't know. I didn't feel like it did. I felt like it more denigrates the natural culture that evolves in a prison community made up of just women.
Yeah.
Women who are, many of them, actual criminals.
Yeah.
Because that's another big part of it, right? That this movie is reminding us that we have somebody who was not a criminal, and the prison system made her one.
Yep. It's got to feed itself, Pete.
It's got to feed itself.
Keep feeding
right?
itself. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. You want to talk about Carl Guthrie?
Film. Oh yeah.
We didn't mention a thing. I don't know. Do we have any other Carl Guthries on the list? I don't think so.
Carl Guthrie, the cinematographer. I don't know. Things like House on Haunted Hill we haven't talked about, but I think probably one of the films that Guthrie is known for. I think that the cinematography, I think, is stark and bleak as it needs to be. It works. Shooting in black and white purposefully for this makes sense in a story like this. I think it plays well.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's he does play with it. He plays with it particularly for Marie, right? Like, it starts, she's very soft, and we get nice lovely lines and a framing and light from her. And then as she changes, he moves to like harsher side light toward the end, and it's just it highlights some really stark angles on her face, and her close-ups get really kind of diabolical. And I love that. I love that he used light to frame her character change. That's the point of having somebody who knows the film so well clearly make this thing. I think it's also kind of easy because, I mean, it's easy to shoot a prison and make the prison look mean, because prisons look mean. You don't have to think a whole lot about light and shape in order to make a prison look mean. And I think he does that. Lots of grids, lots of shooting through bars, all the stuff you kind of would imagine, mesh, window lattices. There's lots of window stuff. There's lots of stuff where we have the characters, we're behind the characters and we're looking through the windows at trains going by and things like that. The feeling of loss and exclusion from community by way of grid imagery, which I think works really well. So,
yeah. And I think that was, just mentioning the train, I thought that was one of the more interesting moments that we had in this film, where we have conversations happening, arguments happening. All of the women, though, stop as this train rolls by outside their window, which must not happen that often for them to react this way, but it's a real reminder of the outside world and the connection that they have to it. It's like their only connection they have. And they all stop and they watch as this train rolls by.
It's like a religious moment.
Really interesting moment, yeah.
Solemn.
Yeah. So, and we did talk about Christmas in Connecticut. That was another thing that Carl Guthrie did shoot.
Okay.
So,
yeah. That's a different kind of film, you might say.
Yeah, well, you can see the difference in technique, right, between a Christmas film and this prison film.
Although some might say there's a Venn diagram in which those two films overlap in some ways. We'll explore that.
They do have a Christmas scene in this film.
That's right.
So
this is a Christmas movie.
Film? Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Got anything else? We good?
I think that's it. It's an interesting film. I'm glad to have seen it. Oh, one last little note. This is just a small one, but in the scope of Warner Brothers potentially getting sold and no longer being a thing anymore after all these years, I just want to call out, there's something that I always enjoyed with Warner Brothers and the composers, Max Steiner on this film being one of them, who would allowed the theme of when their logo would show to be integrated into the score. And we see it in from Casablanca is one I'm thinking of, but to this one where you've got the Warner Brothers logo theme playing, and then when it hits that last note, it goes into a minor key and it turns into the score that leads through the credits, which is all inside this paddy wagon of the women going to prison. Like, that's how the film opens. And I love that Warner Brothers would and Max Steiner would do that with the score, where they would play with the logo in ways to integrate it into the start of the actual score. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah, it's really fun to see it that long ago, right? Because you forget how long they've been doing that sort of playfulness, right? And other companies too. Universal does it all the time, it's just sort of a playfulness with their corporate branding that is, I think, it's neat. It's neat to see them do that.
I always felt like it was a fun modern thing, but it's fun to be reminded, they were doing this back in the 40s and 50s also.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When they were arguably, I don't know, more precious, less precious about branding. I don't even know how to characterize how I imagine Jack Warner felt about the branding of the logo, the title splash.
Yeah, right.
Huh.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, that is it for now. So we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Jakob Pietrus. Electric Zoo, Out of Flux, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Okay, so...
Did you like that I picked band or musician names that you could pronounce this time?
I actually... Did you hear that I almost stumbled because they were too easy? I expected them to be... I saw Electric Zoo, and I was like, those aren't even words I can pronounce. Oh, wait, yes, they are. That was funny. All right, so it's my turn, is what you're saying.
I'm saying.
They say nobody walks into Letterboxd innocent. Maybe you thought you'd just log a movie or two. Maybe you figured you'd remember what you watched last month. But that's how it starts. Before long, you're ranking every noir film from Cage to Double Indemnity and arguing about run times like it's your only shot at parole. But listen, there is a way to make your time go easier. Join Letterboxd and get 20% off pro and patron membership with the code NEXTREEL. It works on renewals too, because everyone deserves a second shot at rehabilitation. Inside, you'll get all the perks, advanced stats, filters, and streaming service tracking. You'll see exactly how deep you've sunk into that filmography, and you'll like it. You'll start to understand the system, the star system, the heart system, and you'll realize you're not trapped. You belong here. The guards call it obsession. We call it appreciation. So do your time with dignity. Use the code NEXTREEL when you join or renew and take 20% off that sentence. Keep your diary straight, your watch list longer than your rap sheet, and remember, on Letterboxd, eventually, everybody gets out clean. See you in the yard. We'll be the ones arguing about whether Caged really does count as noir. Pum pum.
Dun dun dun.
Okay. Sequels and remakes, Andy. Is there a sequel? What happens to her?
Cage 2.
It's just Agnes Moorhead's character. It's just an office comedy with Agnes.
It's just
Moorhead.
a reform. Yeah, just trying to reform. Right. Now, there's no sequels unless you want to jump into all the Roger Corman exploitation films.
Oh, I don't.
Could be considered spin-offs. No, I don't know. But this film was specifically satirized in a 1977 SCTV comedy sketch called Broads Behind Bars. Minnie was renamed Cheryl, portrayed by Catherine O'Hara. Cheryl was depicted as a teenager in the mid to late 50s who, after smoking pot, ended up in prison after being framed for armed robbery and also learns later she's pregnant. Kitty is played by Andrea Martin, and John Candy in drag plays the role of the matron Harper, called Schultze. A knife fight between Kitty and Harper occurs in the skit instead of a fork as in the film, while both Kitty and Schultze die. Kitty is fatally stabbed by Schultze, and Schultze is later killed by Cheryl.
Jesus.
For her action, Cheryl is then told she can be released from prison. However, she responds by only laughing and declining the offer, echoing Kitty's remark in the original film, "No dice." The skit in the end presents itself not only as a parody of women in prison movies like Caged, but also as a spoof of the anti-marijuana films that were presented to students in many American high schools during the late 50s and early 60s.
Wow. Boy, I'm not sure that I would expect something like that even on SCTV.
It's funny. I'm going to have to see if I can find find that clip on YouTube.
Yeah.
And maybe if I can, I'll throw it into the show notes, because that'd be an interesting one to watch. I can see John Candy as a drag matron named Schultze.
But everybody dies. That's horrible.
That's why it's funny. I don't know.
Okay. How to do at award season?
The film, again, this was a the type of film that Oscar voters were wanting to see. It had 2 wins, 5 other nominations. At the Oscars, this is why we're here, Eleanor Parker was nominated for Best Actress. But as we discussed last week, she lost to Judy Holliday in Born Yesterday. Hope Emerson, who plays Harper, was now nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but lost to Josephine Hull in Harvey. And the film was nominated for Best Writing, Story, and Screenplay, but lost to Sunset Boulevard. At the Venice International Film Festival, Parker won Best Actress. John Cromwell was nominated the Golden Lion, which is the highest prize given at the festival, but lost to the French film Justice is Done. Interestingly, another film about justice. At the Laurel Awards, Agnes Moorhead was nominated for Top Female Character Performance, but lost to Spring Byington in Louisa. And at the Photoplay Awards, this is the monthly magazine. Again, in July, we talked about this, or we'll talk about this in our member bonus episode looking at The Gunfighter. But Eleanor Parker won Best Performance of the Month for the month of July.
Okay. I like that we break it down monthly.
Yeah, you gotta love Photoplay magazine.
You gotta love Photoplay magazine. So once again, carrying the torch. I can't wait again till we get to January when you get numbers again. This is an embarrassment for this segment, and I wonder why you're still showing up for it. But here we are. Andy, how'd it do at the box office?
I just shake my head at you. I blame you, actually, for all of this. I don't
sorry.
blame myself.
What? The nerve, sir.
I know. Now, I really have no idea how much Cromwell had to make this movie, unfortunately. I don't have... Warner Brothers was not keeping as good track as other studios. It did open May 19th, 1950. I have that. And it ended up earning $1.5 million or $19.7 million in today's dollars. That's all she wrote, folks. I don't have anything else.
Do you know what? Just to make up for it, why don't you just do that whole bit again 4 or 5 times?
Just keep going.
Just keep reading the same thing, just so we really internalize it. Good grief. Yeah. I find it hard to believe that there isn't some mob boss somewhere with a ledger that Jack Warner was tracking Jack Warner's expenses in this era.
Well, there might be, but that's might make it even harder for me to find unless I get in with the mob and start going through their ledgers. I'm sure I'd be totally fine doing that.
Andy, if anyone could find it going undercover, it's you. Okay.
Well, I liked this film. I think it has a place in film history. I think it's interesting as we kind of see the evolution, kind of the birth and evolution of prison films, of women in prison films, and we get a sense of kind of like the frustrating system that they are. So, it worked for me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it worked for me too. I really did enjoy the film, and I can see myself returning to it. It's vastly superior to so many of the Roger Corman films we've watched. It's nice to come back to its spiritual ancestor.
To one that, has a little more meat on its bones,
exactly.
as they say. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, it's a good good film, worth talking about. And that is it, everybody, for today's conversation. Next week, we are looking at the final episode in this series, talking about Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard, starring Oscar-nominated Gloria Swanson. We'll be right back for our ratings. It's interesting that color films had been in existence for quite some time, but all of the Best Actress nominees that we're talking about are all black and white films.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back for our ratings. I think I said that already.
You did.
All right. You know what? We'll be right back for our ratings.
But first, the numbers. You know what? I don't have any numbers.
All right. All right. This is me. Let me find my thing again. Hey, fresh meat. Yeah, you with the wide eyes and the trembling lips. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you don't belong here, that this is all a big mistake. Well, let me tell you something. In here, we're all innocent. And we're all guilty. But there's one thing that keeps us going. One thing that keeps us from losing our minds in this concrete jungle. And that's the power of cinema. You see, This is the next reel. It's not just a podcast, it's a lifeline. A way to escape these four walls, even if it's just for an hour or two. And with a membership, you can have that escape whenever you want. With a membership to the next reel, you'll get early access to episodes, ad-free listening, exclusive bonus content, like having your own private movie theater in your cell. And it's not just the next reel, oh no. CinemaScope, The Film Board, Movies We Like, Sitting in the Dark. They're all part of the same network, all pumping that sweet, sweet cinema straight into your veins. But it's not just about the escape, it's about the community. In here, we stick together. And the next reel, it's like our secret society, a way to bond over something other than our rap sheets and our regrets. So what do you say, fresh meat? Ready to join the club? Head to truestory.fm/join and sign up. $5 a month, or $55 a year. It's a small price to pay for a little taste of freedom. Think about it, but don't wait too long. In here, you never know when your number might be up. The next reel, truestory.fm/join. Welcome to the big house, kid.
Tell me more about my trembling lips.
Oh, jeez.
Letterboxd, Andy. Letterboxd.com/thenextreel. That's where you find our HQ page. Make sure to follow us over there. And you'll see all of our reviews and all of our lists. We've got so many lists. Oh, my God, you guys, so many lists of great, great films. Andy, what are you going to do for this fair film?
This one I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed my time with the film. I think that it's fine as a 3.5 for me. 3.5 and a heart. I think that it's a good, enjoyable film. You know, it's not one that I'll necessarily return to often, but I think that it was strong and worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm with you. But as you know, Pete, no half stars, right? The question is, am I optimistic on the 4 side or pessimistic on the 3 side? I think I'm going to go on the 3 side. It's just...
Pessimistic Pete. New nickname.
Pessimistic Pete, but I am going to give it a heart, a big, throbbing, beating heart. Maybe a cow heart with multiple chambers. Stomach. Wow. I'm giving it a cow's stomach.
I don't even know.
Somebody does. Somebody out there knows, and that's for them.
That just went giving them strange.
3 stars on a cow's stomach.
Let's talk to Letterboxd, see if they can get that integrated.
We're going to need to change
just for Caged, the Caged entry page.
That's right. They do that sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Like Barbie, you get. I don't know what you get on Barbie.
Yeah.
Pink stars.
This was a good story.
Orange hearts, green clovers, blue diamonds, purple horseshoes.
Andy, I forget. Did you have any numbers for this movie?
All right. That averages out to 3.25, which rounds up to 3.5 over on our account on Letterboxd, which you can find at the next reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film, and you can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about Caged? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
All right. Did you go high or low?
I went high.
Okay. Why don't you go first?
Oh, does that mean you went low? Oh, okay. I went with D. Selwyn's, or is it D.S. Elwyn's? Anyway, whatever it is. Or is it DeSelwyn's? Anyway, that's what I'm going with. 5-star
DSL wins.
DSL wins. Okay,
Yeah.
There you go. 5-star and a heart. Elvira and Kitty are powerful butch for butch con artist ex-girlfriends.
Okay. All right, I like it. Morak99 gives it 1 star and says, I'll give it credit for having its heart in the right place in terms of the social issues, but this is just a bad movie. It feels like the movie that stereotypical dumb young people complain about when they say they won't watch black and white movies. Massive overacting to the cheap seats, too obvious dialogue, mustache-twirling villainy, hammy score, etc. There are just other pictures that are better about prison abuses, both from the time period and now. Also, screw this movie for subjecting me out of nowhere to violence against a kitten. I'm a recent first-time cat owner, and I was not having that. Thanks very much. We didn't even mention kitten.
We didn't mention the kitten. That's because it was too traumatizing, Pete.
It was too traumatizing.
It was
brutal.
brutal.
Thanks, Letterboxd.